Chapter 41. Act 2. Mira? What a strange-sounding name. Why had he called me that? Mira, Mira on the wall, what is the meaning of this all? Those were my confused thoughts as a VR attendant released me from my immersion rig. I blinked groggily and kneaded my temples as if I were waking up from a long dream. "Please follow the yellow arrows to the exit," the attendant said in a bored tone. Before I could respond, the attendant had already moved on to the next immersion rig. I staggered out of my rig and shook out my cramped limbs. Then I followed a path of large yellow arrows painted on the floor. They led me into a dreary-looking waiting room with a scuffed tile floor and plastic chairs bolted to the wall. Gentle, easy-listening piano music played softly through tinny speakers. "Thank you for taking your stress management assessment test," a pre-recorded voice announced over the innocuously boring piano chords. "Results will be sent to your host within a few weeks. Enjoy the rest of your day." I was relieved to see Ronnie waiting for me on one of the uncomfortable plastic chairs. "What took you so long?" she asked, rising to greet me. "I was about to go back in looking for you." "I don't know." I shrugged. When my test was over, I was told I'd been selected for an extra simulation. It was really weird. My host looked me over with concern. "Are you okay? You seem a little distracted." "Yeah," I say breathily, forcing a smile. That was just a lot to take in. "Tell me about it." Ronnie made a dramatic flourish with her arm. "I was pushed into a literal shark tank with literal sharks. They were staring at me with their evil, beady eyes and their giant, pointy teeth. I don't think I can ever go swimming again." I saw no point in being a smart aleck and reminding her they were virtual sharks, not literal sharks. The simulations had been very convincing. "Anyway, you look like you could use some of this." Ronnie pulled a chocolate bar out of her messenger bag. Chocolate is always the answer. "Thank you for taking your stress management assessment test," the pre-recorded voice said on its loop. "Results will be sent to your host within a few weeks. Enjoy the rest of your day." If I have to hear that one more time, I'm gonna go crazy. Ronnie scowled at the ceiling. "Let's go find our friendly purple escorts and get back to our boat." Unfortunately, our friendly purple escorts were nowhere to be found. Ronnie and I wandered through the processing center's main atrium looking for anyone in a Freedom Force uniform. We couldn't find a single officer. Had they all taken a collective afternoon coffee break or something? The lines of expectant newbies waiting to take their smat had also disappeared. Was it getting close to closing? At last, we found a man wearing an official-looking uniform sitting behind a desk labeled Newbie Services. Ronnie marched up to the desk. "Excuse me, are you with the Freedom Force?" The man looked mildly insulted. "Do I look like I have the fashion sense of an eggplant?" He sniffed. "No, I'm with Newbie Services." He gestured to his sign and gave us a duh look. "Do you know where we might find anyone from the Freedom Force?" Ronnie asked politely. "They promised us a ride home." The man looked us over, wrinkling his nose in distaste. "And who exactly are you to be demanding rides from the Freedom Force?" "We're eruditions who complied with the laws of your island, and now we're done," Ronnie replied in a less polite tone. "Can you help us or not?" The man raised one of his perfectly plucked eyebrows. "Refugees, huh? That explains your mongrel coloring." I put my hand on Ronnie's arm in an attempt to diffuse her rising indignation. "We're not asking for much, sir," I cut in. "We were brought here a few hours ago by some Freedom Force officers for our processing tests. Those officers promised they'd return us to our boat by dinner time. Can you please tell us where we can find them? Then we'll be gone." Ronnie continued to glare down the newbie service desk man. He scratched his nose in consideration. "Fine," he acquiesced. "Whatever will make you leave." He pulled out a small digi-screen and tapped in a number before pulling the screen to his ear. "Hey, yeah, this is Brent at the front desk." He sighed into the digi-screen. He listened for a moment. "Ugh, I know, hump days are the worst. I can't wait to hit the gym. I ran 4 miles on Gwenner's Day, and my calves were literal iron. But Sue, before I get off, I have a little issue to deal with. A couple of refugees just strolled up to my desk and demanded an escort from your guys. Do you know anything about that?" Ronnie's scowl deepened as Brent, the newbie services desk man, listened to the voice on the other end of the line. He turned to us. "Are your names Veronica and Emily?" I nodded. "Yeah, it's them," Brent said into his screen. Uh-huh. Okay, yeah, I'll let them know. Ciao." Brent put down his digi-screen and frowned at us. "Be at the front steps in 3 hours. Someone will be there to take you back to your boat." 3 hours, Ronnie protested. "Why 3 hours?" Brent shrugged. "Driving around refugees isn't exactly a priority. Now please find someone else to bother." As we exited the processing center, Ronnie fumed under her breath about xenophobic, self-important, racist pricks. I wasn't too thrilled by our treatment either, but I was determined to make the most of our 3 hours wait. The weather was pleasant enough, and I thought it might be fun to walk around the surrounding parks. I imagined how excited Dr. Greensboro would be to spot new Latiquarian bird species. That thought made me smile. Maybe I could gather feathers for her in case I ever made it back to paradise. "Emily Starp?" A clear, melodious voice cut through my revels. Ronnie and I stopped our descent down the front steps and turned to see a tall, graceful woman following us out the main entrance. She was wearing an elegantly tailored crimson pantsuit with a white blouse peeking out beneath a plunging V-shaped neckline. Ronnie and I glanced at each other. "I'm Emily." I turned to the woman. "Can I help you?" The woman smiled as she approached. She had glossy ebony hair, a beautifully heart-shaped face, and the most interesting eyes I'd ever seen. They were a deep nut brown with a narrow, angular shape. It was difficult to tell the woman's age. Her skin was bright and smooth with a youthful glow, but she carried herself with the authoritative air of someone with years of leadership experience. "Hello, Emily. My name is Jadith." The woman extended her hand. "I'm head of the Greater Kiborian Council. We monitor the stress management assessment tests." Everything about this woman radiated confidence and sophistication. Her stylish clothes, her sultry voice, her flawless smile. My large, dry-skinned hand felt out of place in her dainty, perfectly manicured grip. "Hi," I said in confusion. "Does this have something to do with my extra simulation?" Jadith released my hand and let out a light, musical chuckle. "Oh, you catch on quickly." She looked immensely pleased. "You'll be perfect." "Perfect for what?" Ronnie interrupted, staring suspiciously at Jadith. Jadith turned the full radiance of her attention to Ronnie. "And you must be Veronica," she said with an ingratiating smile. "You were listed as the host. You must be very proud of your newbie." "Emily has her moments," Ronnie conceded, impervious to Jadith's flattery. "But why are you interested in her?" Jadith's bright smile remained in place as she turned back to me. "Your test results were spectacular, Emily." She beamed. "I don't often meet with newbies, but I can tell from your scores you have all the right characteristics to become a Kiborian powerhouse." Thank you." I squirmed internally, feeling simultaneously flattered and uncomfortable. "But what does any of that mean?" "Kibori is very much a meritocracy," Jadith explained. "The only way to succeed in this town is through hard work, determination, and initiative. I'm always on the lookout for bright new stars with the potential for greatness, and when I find them, I guide them up the ladder to leadership. I've been watching for a fresh newbie to mentor, and you are perfect. You're intelligent and intuitive and assertive. With the right connections, you could really make a name for yourself here." "Hold up." Ronnie forced her short frame between us. Forgive me for being skeptical, but this whole thing raises more red flags than a red cap parade on Ascension Day. What kind of weird talent scout shows up out of nowhere and offers a vague, fame-grabbing power trip to a young transplant? Sounds like an exploitation scheme to me. Are you some kind of pimp? Ronnie, I gasped. But Jadith just laughed her airy musical laugh. It's all right, Jadith assured me. You're lucky to have someone watching out for you. I can see your intelligence is an inherited trait, she added with a wink to Ronnie. Don't worry, Veronica, Jadith continued in a soothing tone. I will never pressure you nor Emily into doing anything that you're uncomfortable with. I am just so impressed by her test scores. Plus, I'm always eager to help fellow transplants. You're a transplant? I asked excitedly. I am, Jadith answered with a knowing smile. I entered in Eridet City just like you. That's why I'm so thrilled by your arrival. I can't wait to show you why I decided to settle here. When did you enter? Ronnie assessed Jadith's face. You don't look much older than a newbie yourself. Thank you. Jadith smiled, turning Ronnie's jibe into a compliment. Kibori has amazing anti-aging treatments. And so many other amazing things, too. Please, let me show you around the city tonight. Where are you staying? Ronnie and I looked at each other. We hadn't really talked about it. On our boat, I suppose. I shrugged. We have nowhere else to go. Oh, no, you can't stay there. Jadith's nose wrinkled in disgust. The stench alone is enough to keep you up all night. Not to mention the sirens, the gunshots, the domestic brawls. She shook her head. No, I'll put you up in the penthouse suite of one of my hotels for the night. We don't need, Ronnie started. Please, Jadith interrupted, placing her hands over her heart. It would be my pleasure. It's not often I get to spoil fellow eruditions. I want you to see Kibori at its best, not its worst. Let me show you what this island is all about. It was an amazing offer. Jadith seemed so self-assured and interesting. I didn't know if it was because she was a fellow transplant or what, but I felt an immediate connection with her. I wanted to learn what Jadith had to share. I looked hopefully to Ronnie. By the way she chewed her lip, I could tell her resolve was cracking. We still have to stop by our boat, said my ever-practical host. I need a nap and a shower before I see anything. Of course, Jadith said. Can I call you a cab? The newbie services guy said a Freedom Force escort will be here in a couple hours, Ronnie replied. Jadith rolled her eyes. Typical, she muttered. You don't need to wait for that. Here, let me take care of it. She pressed a finger to her left ear. Irini, have a pod sent to the front of the Greater Kiborian Processing Center immediately. Jadith removed her finger and smiled at us. That was my assistant. She'll have you back to your boat in no time. Relax for a bit, then pack an overnight bag. I'll send a pod to collect you at 6. A long black pod pulled up to the curb. There's your ride, Jadith announced, leading the way down the steps. As I followed Ronnie into the pod, Jadith smiled at me with a mischievous twinkle in her eye. It's such a pleasure to meet you, Emily. I'm so glad you decided to come and see. Then she closed the pod door behind me. To be continued.